What's going on, guys? Welcome back, and today I am going to be giving you my thoughts on the three most recent episodes of the Book of Boba Fett, those being chapters 2, 3, and 4. Now, when the show started out, I was contemplating doing just single reviews for each episode like I did for The Mandalorian Season 2, but I decided against that, and I'm going to be doing a similar review style to that of The Bad Batch last year, where I reviewed like 3 episodes in a video. So we have episodes 2, 3, and 4 to talk about today, and then in a couple weeks I'll talk about episodes 5, 6, and 7 being the final 3, I believe, because I think there's only 7 episodes and not 8 like The Mandalorian. Anyway, let's get started with episode 2. Starting off with Chapter 2, The Tribes of Tatooine, this episode just continued everything that I loved about the first episode. What I loved about the first episode was that it felt much more like a character study than an action show like The Mandalorian did at the beginning. That's not to say that I didn't like The Mandalorian, I enjoyed that show quite a bit, but I love that this show is taking on the role of being more of a character study for Boba Fett. There is action within it, and it is very well executed, but at its core, it is about the character. What I forgot to mention in the first video as well is that I love that this show is acknowledging the Star Wars prequels and tying them into the story in an intelligent way. The Star Wars sequel trilogy tried to completely ignore the existence of the prequels entirely, but what I've been loving about these live-action shows, first with The Mandalorian and now The Book of Boba Fett, is that they are fully acknowledging the prequels and embracing them. I love that we see a flashback of young Boba in the Geonosian arena as well as him on Kamino. Something about that, just as a prequel fan, warms my heart. This episode also continues the humanization of the Sand People or Tusken Raiders that was established in The Mandalorian. You get to know them more in this episode, and it's very much a deep dive into their culture. Boba trains with them and learns from them, and in the process you learn that there are different tribes, so perhaps the tribe that killed Anakin's mom in Attack of the Clones were violent, and this tribe is a pacifist tribe, I suppose. And this episode does humanize them in a way that is beneficial to the arc of the protagonist, because through his experiences with them, Boba is learning the value of compassion, leadership, and strength. And I feel like that's just the mark of good writing when you are able to humanize an aspect of the franchise that has been largely neglected in the past, while also developing the main character in the process. You also have an excellent action sequence where Boba and the Tuskens attempt to stop this train of Pikes who have been taking pot shots at the tribe. It's just an excellent action sequence wherein they are able to show what they've learned from each other. It was cool seeing the Pikes again, although it was weird that they did not look consistent at all with their appearance from Solo: A Star Wars Story. It would be nice to have some sort of consistency among live-action Star Wars projects, but that's okay. They were instantly recognizable, and it was interesting to see them potentially setting up the return of Crimson Dawn and Kira later in this show. Not much progresses in the current time story, though. You have the introduction of the twins, Jabba's cousins, who are threatening Boba's power over Mos Espa, as well as the introduction of Black Chrysanthemum, who is continually becoming a more substantial character as the show goes on. Overall, I just thought this episode was fantastic, and it is by far my favorite episode of the series so far. Now, going off of the high that was episode 2, I was really looking forward to episode 3. Unfortunately, it didn't quite live up to my expectations. That's not to say that I hated it. On the contrary, I actually quite enjoyed it, but there were a few plot holes and just strange things about it that kind of pulled me out a little bit. But the opening is fantastic. You have Boba bargaining with the Pikes, trying to provide protection for the Tuskens. However, the Pikes do explain that they already have paid-for protection for the Nikto bikers that Boba saw basically vandalizing a bunch of villages around Tatooine. So he says that he will go and take out the Niktos so that the Pikes can provide protection for the Tuskens. However, when he returns to his encampment, he finds out that his entire tribe has been slaughtered by the Nikto bikers, and that was a tragic moment, easily the most emotional moment of the series so far, and I never thought I would feel so much for Tusken Raiders, but this show made me feel for them. When things cut back to current time, however, things start to get pretty strange, because Chrysanthemum just rips Boba straight out of his bacta tank and starts beating him up and crushing his bones. However, with the assistance of the newly hired biker gang, as well as Fennec, who shows up rather late to the party, I may add, they are able to subdue Chrysanthemum. I just don't find the circumstances surrounding that to be particularly believable. I don't know how Chrysanthemum just flounced into the palace and started attacking Boba. I've seen the theory that Fennec is in secret working for the Pikes, who we do find out later have a claim on Boba's land, and she just allowed Chrysanthemum access to the palace and to attack Boba, and that's why she arrives so late to the party. However, considering the added context of Episode 4 and considering the fact that she owes Boba a life debt, I don't find it likely that she'd just betray him like that. I think the most likely scenario is that the creative team just wanted to elicit shock from the audience and didn't consider how it would make sense in context. All of that just seemed a little bit rushed to me because the twins show up, give him a rancor, and they head out. Chrysanthemum does return the next episode, though, so it's not like he's left the show forever. I just think that everything around that was kind of stupid. It's like, how are you just there? Like, Chrysanthemum's just in the palace. Like, you're just there? How are you there, dude? Another point of discussion for the third episode is the introduction of this biker gang that Boba hires, who have these very vibrant speeder bikes and all this gadgetry. Now, I know that is perhaps a result of the fact that Robert Rodriguez did direct that episode, and he directed the Spy Kids movies, so there's a little bit of Spy Kids influence going on in there. However, I just don't think that was in keeping with the tone of the show. Not that I feel that's inconsistent with the Star Wars world. Star Wars has a lot of weird stuff in it, so it's not that I feel that isn't in keeping with Star Wars. It's the fact that this show is trying to be a more grounded, gritty, like, crime-style show within Star Wars, and I found just the vibrancy of the bikes and the weird gadgets and stuff to be not really in keeping with the tone of the overall show. Thankfully, they don't have a lot of screen time in Episode 4, and I hope that they don't take up a ton of screen time from here on out. Overall, I thought the episode was okay. I didn't hate it. I think all the stuff going on with Boba Fett is great. The flashback stuff, his overall character development is consistently good. But I did think the whole thing with Chrysanthemum and the biker gang was just kind of strange, and it ultimately made this one my least favorite of the show so far. Things get right back on track with Chapter 4, The Gathering Storm, which is, in my opinion, at this point in time, the second best episode of the series next to Episode 2. This episode may as well have been called the Mandalorian tie-in episode, but it gave me everything that I was hoping to see as well as everything that I was expecting to see. Boba finally finds Fennec out in the desert, patches her up, and you get to see the formation of their bond as well as why she feels she owes him her life. They break into Jabba's palace and reclaim the Slave One in a pretty cool action sequence, which climaxes in him avenging the death of his Tusken tribe by slaughtering the group of Nikto bikers, which was a very satisfying moment. He goes searching for his armor in the Sarlacc pit, which they are almost pulled into until Fennec has the bright idea of dropping a seismic charge into its mouth, which was yet another pretty badass moment, if I may say so myself. And you get to see Boba just finally laying out all of his motives on the table and explaining why he wants to become a crime lord and leave his past as a bounty hunter behind. He explains that he's sick of working for people who do not care at all about his well-being, and I thought once again that all of that was great. Everything surrounding Boba's development in the show so far has been fantastic. Once we cut back to current time, we see him recruit Chrysanthemum and host a meeting for all of the crime families that worked under Bib Fortuna. He suggests them all coming together and working to fight the Pikes, to which they do not agree, but he says that all he wants is for them to not accept partnership with the Pikes, which they agree to, but Boba explains that he does not trust them. He explains that he needs muscle, and Fennec replies by saying that credits can buy muscle, and we hear a subtle version of the Mandalorian's theme, and that is how the episode ends. Now, out of all the character cameos that could possibly happen, the Mandalorian was one that I figured was pretty likely. If he does show up, I hope that they handle his character well and that he doesn't intrude upon the story or overshadow Boba Fett's character. I just thought everything about this episode was great. It continued the story as well as Boba's character development extremely well, while also tying into the Mandalorian very well. The only thing that stuck out to me as being a little strange was that when Boba exits the Bacta tank in current time, Fennec tells him that his healing procedure has concluded, and people have taken that to mean that the flashbacks are over and we won't be seeing any more of them. However, I was hoping they would explain how Boba finds out where the armor is, because he goes into the Sarlacc pit searching for the armor, obviously not knowing where it is. The first episode, he's trying to wake up, but the Jawas knock him out when they're taking it. We know that Cobb Vanth eventually buys it off the Jawas, and that he eventually gives it to the Mandalorian in the Season 2 premiere, that ends with Mando riding off into the distance with Boba watching him from afar, assumedly knowledgeable of the fact that he is in possession of his armor. I was hoping they would explain how Boba came to know the fact that Cobb or Mando were in possession of his armor, but if it is true that we won't be seeing any more flashbacks, I suppose we won't have that explained to us. Perhaps I'm wrong, I guess we'll have to wait and see, but if that is true, that's a little strange because I was hoping they would fill in that gap a little bit. With all that said, that's pretty much it for my thoughts on the most recent 3 episodes of the Book of Boba Fett. I thought episodes 2 and 4 were fantastic. Episode 3 was okay, but it had a few things that dragged it down for me. But overall, this show is great so far, and I can't wait to see where it goes next. I think this show has the potential to be the best first season of any Star Wars show. That title, in my mind, was previously held by The Bad Batch, but we'll have to wait and see. Boba Fett may beat out The Bad Batch. Just whatever your thoughts are, please let me know them all in the comments below. And of course, as always, I hope you guys have a great day. Take care.